Hey, good afternoon, folks, and welcome to another installment in our Lunch and Learn series. Caroline will tell you a little bit more about this particular series in a few moments. I just wanted to thank you for joining us this afternoon, and I do hope you have an opportunity to visit the museum and the Sea Center this summer. We have fabulous Costa Rican butterflies in our pavilion. The Rare Earth Show is just spectacular in the auditorium. And of course, the Sea Center, the new second floor exhibit called Dive In is just amazing. There's so much to do and enjoy at both the museum and the Sea Center. So I hope you come, you bring your family, friends from out of town. Caroline and I are always more than happy. If you give us a call, we'll come down and say hello and chat for a few minutes. And now to tell us about today's Lunch and Learn, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Caroline Baker.
Good afternoon. I'm Caroline Baker, the Santa Barbara Museum of Natural History's Director of Development. We're happy to share with you this free webinar with helpful information on charitable gift annuities and how you might use them in your estate plan. The program will be presented by Plan Giving Advisory Council Chair Denise Stevens and Museum Trustee and Finance Chair Tori Milazzo. Time has been allotted at the end for questions as well. Please place your questions in the chat function, which is at the bottom of the screen. A handout was included in your email yesterday, and we'll also send you a link to this recording in a couple of days as well. If you have any technical issues, please email Allie Nygaard at anygaard@sbnature2.org. This email was also the email used for your notifications. And feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about plan giving or need information from me about the museum or want to follow up with either of our speakers. I'm here to help you leave a legacy for the museum, and I hope that you'll keep the museum in mind in your estate planning. Now I'd like to introduce Denise and Tori. Denise Stevens is a former institutional trust officer, a financial advisor, and plan giving professional. She joined the museum's Plan Giving Advisory Council in 2017 and has been serving as the chair ever since. We are incredibly grateful for her guidance and leadership. And Tori Milazzo is a museum trustee, as I said earlier, and chair of the finance committee. He's a senior portfolio manager at Union Bank and Highmark Capital Management. And a little personal information, he's a native of North Alabama, but he and his wife Kelly live with their two daughters now in Santa Barbara, right near the water on the Mesa. So we're lucky to have both of them lead this great presentation. So I'm turning it over now to you, Denise.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here on a bright and sunny day in Santa Barbara. As Caroline said, we're talking about charitable gift annuities today. So gift annuities are not actually a new idea. An early example occurred back in 1831 when a colonial artist actually gave some of his paintings to Yale University in exchange for lifetime income. However, CGAs, or as we call them, gift annuities, have become a lot more formalized, structured, and very popular in recent years. So you're probably all wondering exactly what is a charitable gift annuity. Well, think contract. These are formalized contracts between a donor and a charitable organization. In exchange for a gift of cash or property such as stocks, bonds, mutual funds, etc., the donor gets lifetime income, just like that colonial artist did. The charity gets the residual. So you fund it up front with cash, you get lifetime income. Whatever remains at the end goes to the charity. The IRS considers these split interest gifts, but we'll let your accountant tell you about that. But it means that some of the income is tax-free. These are irrevocable gifts. Once you make it, it's a done deal, the contract. And the organizations that do these must be licensed by the state. So that brings up the subject of safety. While they're not insured like a bank, with FDIC insurance, there are very stringent licensing requirements. Furthermore, the assets that are collected are kept in segregated accounts, and these are monitored by the state. The organizations have to file annual reports. So money's kept in a reserve account. Furthermore, they actually are backed by all the assets of the charity for future income. So when you are looking at organizations, you obviously do want to look at the strength and quality of that organization. So I think it's time to talk about benefits, and I'd like to turn it over to Tori to outline those.
Great. Thanks, Denise, and good day, everyone. Just also want to echo the thank you to you all for joining today and learning about this charitable gift annuity program at the Museum of Natural History. I think this is one of the, another one of the best kept secrets at the museum is this program that offers a true win-win in terms of providing benefits to donors and a long-term benefit to the museum as well. Planned giving at the museum is such an important part of the long-term viability of the institution. And so the charitable gift annuity program is a key part of that. And you can see on the screen here a few of the different benefits that we came up with as we were compiling this list. As you see here, the gift annuity is a contract that's going to provide an income stream, a fixed income stream for the term of the donor's life. And then any remaining assets will become a gift to the museum. And the potential for that gift is what creates probably the largest benefit, which is a charitable gift deduction on the donor's income tax. That can provide very important benefits to a donor. And then at the same time, for the museum, this is a way for donors to leave a legacy at the institution and really make a difference in our community. So we can definitely get into more of the benefits during the question and answer period if people have questions. But I think with that, Denise, I'll pass it back to you, and you can talk more about kind of the technicalities of the gift annuity program.
These are fixed rate products. So the rates are determined primarily based on your age at the start, when you start receiving income, and whether you elect a single life contract or a joint life. So you're allowed to execute these for up to 2 lives within one contract. Could be spouses, siblings, but a 2-life contract would slightly reduce the rate because now you're talking over 2 lifetimes. And there is an organization, the American Council on Gift Annuities, that does publish suggested rates. These are actuarial-based rates. The museum does follow those guidelines. And they're actually very competitive rates, and they're going up in July. So let's also look at funding options. So as I mentioned, cash or property. So you can fund these with cash, from savings, securities. As I said, that could be appreciated stocks, bonds, mutual fund shares. And I do want to stress the word appreciated at securities. You would not want to do this with something that you have a loss in. You would want to sell those and take that loss on your own income tax return. but we're going to talk a little more later about the advantage of using appreciated securities. And then again, some charities are able to do this with real estate or collectibles, you know, such as highly valued art, but it's a lot more complex, a little more involved. So you would always have to discuss that with them first. So as I also said earlier, you have options to do 1 or 2 lives and immediate or deferred income. You can start the income at a later date. Since it's age-based income, you'd get a higher rate if you did that. But a picture's worth 1,000 words. So let's look at some examples. Tori, can you take us through some?
Sure, great. Thanks, Denise. And for this first example, we wanted to, I guess we'll start with the plain vanilla version of a charitable gift annuity. You could consider this similar to if you had a $100,000 CD that just matured in the bank, and that's cash that you're most likely never going to use. You have a charitable intent, and so you would like to make a gift. Maybe you can benefit from a tax deduction, and at the same time, you'd like to receive income on those assets. And really, this single life gift annuity example that you see here is a good representation of that. Our friend Bob wanted to make a $100,000 long-term gift to the museum. So the annuity contract is established with that $100,000 amount of money. We estimated a 4.7% annuity rate for a 70-year-old individual, single life term once again. And so you can see here in the notes, that's going to provide annual income of $4,700 based on that annuity rate. But really, there are a couple of other major pieces to that. It's the first, the amount of the annuity value that becomes a charitable deduction on your tax return. You can see here that's a meaningful impact, over $50,000 of deduction available. And then at the same time, because a portion of this earned income is also considered tax-free as part of that gift, it actually makes the implied rate of the new annuity a little bit higher. So over the years, depending on how long Bob may live, any remaining amount of the original annuity contract then becomes a gift, actual cash gift to the museum's endowment. Let's see, I think we've got an example number 2 coming up. We can segue. I think I was going to talk about that one as well. This one, example 2, is to just give you a snapshot of what an annuity looks like for 2 lives. Here we have a husband and wife who together wanted to make a gift. And the main component here, and Denise touched on this earlier, is that when we have 2 lives, most likely that annuity income rate is going to be a little bit lower. Another component here, as we were making these estimates, we were really determining our estimated deduction amounts based on a 22% federal tax rate. So depending on your tax rate, you may get more or less benefit from the charitable deduction amount. But similarly, key takeaway here, 2 lives, slightly lower rate, but still making the same really meaningful gift to the museum at the end of the annuitant's lives. We've got a couple more examples. I'll pass it back to Denise, where we're getting a little bit more complicated, I guess you might say, or nuanced examples of how these gift annuities can be good tools for estate planning for folks.
Thanks, Tori. So let's take a look at a deferred annuity, as I mentioned earlier. So let's say we have someone who is still working in their 60s. In this example, we have Mary, age 64. She's still working and has substantial current income. And because of that, she wants a current tax deduction. But she's also thinking ahead of supplementing her retirement income because she knows she has Social Security and savings later, but would like to lock in some other secured income. So she executes a contract now. She would get a tax deduction at her 22% bracket of over $58,000. And something to mention about this is if you can't use it all in 1 year, you can roll some of that over into future years and get your accountant all excited. Up to a number of years allowed by law. She is locking in at a rate of 5.5%, which she will start taking at age 71. She's thinking, around Social Security. Now, in this example, because she's deferring the income, some of the income still remains tax-free, a little less than in the prior examples, which gives her a higher effective yield. And by the way, the effective yields in the examples that Tori showed you were over 6% because of that tax-free portion of the income. So she can also strategize, Mary here, about how and when to start taking any required minimum distributions from her IRAs, since that is becoming more and more conscious on people's minds and how it's going to impact their taxes once they retire. This deduction could give her the possibility of taking them earlier than she otherwise planned, and thus avoiding the very large hits later, but something to discuss with her accountant. Now let's look at my favorite, stock gifts, and how this would work. So in this example, we have Sharon, age 69, who still has appreciated stock. Let's say she had Microsoft from years and years ago. So she would like to fund a gift annuity with $75,000 worth of her stock. It only had a cost basis of $15,000. It's appreciated quite a bit. If she were to sell it on her own, that means she'd have to pay capital gains taxes on the $60,000 gain. That's a pretty big tax hit. But if she were to use shares to fund a gift annuity, she could bypass a portion of that gains, and then the rest is spread over quite a number of years. So it substantially reduces capital gains. She also gets a write-off, and she would get income for life. And you can't outlive this income, even if you live well beyond, your 90s. So in this example, she'd get income of $3,450 a year. That's a 4.6% rate. But as we've said before, the effective rate is actually higher. She'd get over a $37,000 deduction. And as I said, some of the gains are bypassed, some are spread out. So at the end of every year, she gets a 1099 that breaks all of this out for a happy accountant as to what is tax-free, what is taxed as capital gains, and what is ordinary income. So these can be very effective ways to convert a highly appreciated stock or mutual funds that are not producing income and convert them into an income vehicle that's no longer subject to market fluctuations you know, in years where you can't afford to wait out a market decline. So now let's look, next slide, please, at some of the planning considerations that I alluded to earlier. A deferred income, any of these will supplement retirement income. I once worked with a gal who inherited some money unexpectedly. She was still working and she decided to take that since it was an unexpected gift, fund a deferred annuity for herself for future retirement income. That then did not go into any of her savings. As I mentioned, these are also, with all of us thinking, what do I do with an inherited IRA under the new rules? You have to take all the money out in 10 years, which could be a tax hit to some of us, or just those of us with large IRAs that have built up over the years. The required minimum distributions can get larger and larger in your later years. So this is a way to fulfill your charitable intent now and offset some of those IRA taxable distributions by making a gift. I also saw one woman in my prior life who funded 2 different gift annuities for her siblings. She was well off and she needed the tax deduction, but she knew that her brother and sister, you know, had less income to draw on in their retirement years, and she executed them so that they would get the lifetime income and she got the tax deduction. So there's many ways we can look at using these to fulfill your goals. But in every case, it's a way to also fulfill your legacy, as we said from the outset, and kind of enjoy the benefits of knowing that you're giving to something that matters for long-term future. So I'd really like to turn it back to Tori to talk a little bit more about the key points we brought up today and some final reminders.
Sure. Thanks, Denise. And I think probably as everyone's hearing, one of the key components of the charitable gift annuity idea is the charitable intent of the donor, and that whether it's today or in 20 years, the donor really has a desire to make an impact with the museum, because that's really the underlying component of the program, is the donor's charitable intent. And then along those same lines, another key component is that you want to consider taking this step around your other financial planning decisions. And that's where I think the example number 4 that we took a look at, where you can use appreciated stock to fund an annuity and generate income from those holdings, that can be a really powerful tool. In my day-to-day life, I'm a portfolio manager of stock portfolios. And while it's great to have an appreciated position in a company like Exxon that pays a great dividend, you know, there are a lot of other stocks that people own, like Amazon or a number of others, even Tesla, for example, that don't pay dividends and most likely won't pay dividends in the future. The gift annuity program can be a great way to, without generating a capital gains tax, you can you can really lock in your position and start generating income in a very tax advantaged way for a donor. Let's see, a couple of the other key points here. We touched on this at the beginning of the program as well. this is a unique program that the museum is able to offer in our community. Only a handful of institutions have the financial wherewithal locally to offer a charitable gift annuity program. That's part of the state licensing program. And, you know, it really is, you know, the good housekeeping stamp of approval that you can enter into these gift annuity contracts confidently that you'll be able to receive that income stream for your lifetime, and that the funds will go on to serve and have a meaningful impact on the museum programming and facilities. So that's really why we see it as being a win-win. And let's see, another key point, the minimum funding requirements. I think I was going to pull Caroline into the conversation a little bit here so we can make sure I don't mess up any of the key points. But I believe the minimums are starting at $25,000 to establish an annuity contract. And there are some age requirements. I believe you need to be 65 years old to initiate an immediate annuity. And if you're going to establish a deferred annuity contract, you need to be a 55-year-old. I think there's some other key information we wanted to, the website. We wanted to make sure everyone's aware that there are great charitable gift annuity resources on the museum's website where you can do some modeling yourself and look at rates and look at the different outcomes as they might apply to what you're considering with an annuity at the museum. Let's see, with that, I know we wanted to open it up for questions.
I just wanted to go back and also add that there are no fees or commissions involved with this. And in that stock example I gave, I wanted to reinforce that you do not sell the stock first. If you do that, you've just created a taxable capital gain for yourself. You have to get transfer instructions from the charity. The stock is transferred, it doesn't take long, to the charity's own brokerage account. Once there, the day they get it, that's when they lock in the stock price, and whatever the average price is that day between the high and low is what the value is of your gift. And that'll be used to contractually, generate the income. And you can also take income. You have options: monthly, quarterly, annually. Again, you can ask to see, how this works, but it's pretty easy to take an annual payment and divide it by 12. That's what you would get. And it can be auto deposited to your bank account. Very, very easy income. Also coming from a stock background, there comes a time that we have to look at our portfolios and say, I'm getting to an age where market volatility, while not a bad thing, because that means it can go up too, but market volatility is just something I don't want to handle on a day-to-day basis. I want to take some of my money and not have to manage it, not have to see it, not have to worry about it. So this is part of that overall planning of taking some assets, leaving some for growth and, beat inflation, and some that are simply income fixed, you can't outlive.
And Denise, that reminded me, I'll chime in. As we were preparing this presentation, we also talked about establishing these fixed income streams is something that a lot of donors, as they get older, it gives them peace of mind that this is a part of their long-term financial plan that they don't need to worry about anymore, that income stream's been established. They can count on it, as you said, to arrive on a monthly or quarterly basis. And at the same time, they know that early on, they've made a decision about how they want to make charitable gifts at their passing. So they're able to check a couple of those boxes while they're still with it, for lack of a better word. We did have a question around the taxability of the income distributions that are received as part of the gift annuity contract. We touched on that briefly. The income earned from the annuity is taxable, but not all of it is taxable. And so that's why you saw us estimating a slightly higher earnings rate, because a portion of the income that's received is tax exempt based on the charitable gift. And so that information is determined on the 1099 that's issued every year. And your tax preparer would be able to help you make those calculations and determinations if you're receiving the gift annuity income.
And I've seen some of these illustrations where over half of the income is not taxable, but it does depend, you know, on your age and all the other factors that we've mentioned. So asking to see an illustration is a good starting point.
And then I'll just highlight in my closing comments, I mentioned the website. We did put it up into the chat section if anybody wants to check it out. It's sbnaturelegacy.org. And then we have it here on the screen as well. You have all of our contact information. We understand there's some heavy construction happening at the museum campus today. And so I'm not sure that we'll hear again from Caroline, but she's really the main point person for us for all the gift programs at the museum. And it looks like we're also wondering if we could highlight a little bit more the idea of putting an IRA or an inherited IRA into a gift annuity program. Denise, do you want to touch on that?
Yeah. This is not an IRS retirement vehicle. You can't just do a direct transfer. What I was suggesting, not for everybody, but for some who are being forced into distributions that might otherwise have a negative tax impact on them. I know my husband and I have 2 inherited IRAs. We're fortunate from parents, and we have to take all of that money out under the new IRS rules within a 10-year time span, which means, you know, for any large inherited IRAs, that could definitely impact your tax bracket, and it could impact for those already on Social Security, you know, potential for IRMA, which is the Medicare supplemental tax if you're over a certain income. So you can take some of that money, lock it in for income, and get a write-off. You would be declaring the IRA distribution, but now you have a write-off if you itemize on your tax return. So, you know, always discuss this with your financial advisor, but that is one possibility to help offset large IRA distributions. I hope I was addressing that correctly. We also wanted to say again that if you can't use the entire deduction in 1 year, you can carry some of it over. So you can talk to your CPA about that and whether that would be useful to you. Again, you can kind of tie that back into the idea of, you know, some of us with an inherited IRA, we're taking some over a series of years. Maybe this will help offset it. But don't do anything without kind of looking at your various options and discussing with the museum and your tax advisors. Speaking of discussing with the museum, I know most of us have seen the ads from national companies, you know, in brochures. A lot of national charities are advertising gift annuities these days, but there's only about 5 local organizations that are licensed to do this. And the Santa Barbara Museum of Natural History is one of those. It's been here over 100 years, plans to be here another 100 or more, and you're well acquainted with the programs that they offer. That this would be. If there's no more questions, Tori, perhaps Luke can tell us more about what's upcoming.
Yeah, sounds great. Luke, can we pass it to you?
That's right. Thank you, Tori and Denise, for everything you've shared with us all today. And again, I would like to thank everybody that signed on. If you have any questions or if you want to see how this tool might work for you, please call Caroline directly and she can set up a time for you to talk with Tori or Denise, because all of this has to be tailored to your own individual needs. And of course, if you can think about the museum in your estate plans, that's wonderful. We appreciate your legacy, helping us continue our legacy in the community. Our next Lunch and Learn will be September 13th, and the topic is about how you need to think about your digital assets in your estate planning. And I need to come to that one because I'm not quite sure what we mean by how you consider your digital assets in your estate planning. So I think there's a lot more to all of this than any of us, except maybe Tori or Denise, know. So take advantage of these kind of free opportunities to learn more. We also have our annual estate planning seminar, and that's scheduled November 14th. That's a 2-hour, much more comprehensive overview of estate planning. So if you haven't done this and you just want to know what you're in for, that talk on November 14th is just for you. If you've done your estate planning, but maybe it was a few years ago, may not hurt to kind of see what's new, because the rules, the laws, the regulations constantly change, as Tori and Denise will, I'm sure, agree with me on. Meanwhile, I think that's it. Hope to see you at the museum and the C Center. Again, thank you, Tori. Thanks, Denise. And thank you, everyone who tuned in. Okay, bye-bye. Have a great afternoon.
Have a good one. Thanks all.